everybody with us on this Monday edition of Ed Schultz News and Commentary. Back with you after a few days off in the Mexican sun. Had to get a little R&R. And the news cycle hasn't changed a bit. I haven't missed anything from the debate on Wednesday night. That's all everybody's talking about. You've heard of the Great White Hope? Well, Dr. Ben Carson is the Republican Party's Great Black Hope. I mean, let's cut to the chase. The last thing the Republican Party needs right now is for a minority candidate to go sideways with his credibility. And I think this is what unfolded the other night in the Republican debate on CNBC. And so what are the Republicans doing? They're turning the focus and they're creating the target. Well, CNBC, they were just totally out of bounds. The questions were unprofessional. That's not right. We got to write the head up at NBC and let them know we're not going to be dealing with them anymore. Time out. The issue is about credibility. The issue is about judgment. The issue is about integrity. And this debate deserves some credit for going into the background and the business background and the professional judgment of a man who now leads in the polls nationally and also in Iowa, the first caucus state, and that's Dr. Ben Carson. Now, if we're afraid of the truth, let's be afraid of the truth. Even the conservative media right now is starting to work over the front runner because he was lying in the debate the other night. Here is the question that everybody's reeling about with Dr. Ben Carson. His involvement with a company, Mannatech. Here it is.
This is a company called Mannitech, a maker of nutritional supplements with which you had a 10-year relationship. They offered claims that they could cure autism, cancer. They paid $7 million to settle a deceptive marketing lawsuit in Texas, and yet your involvement continued. Why?
Well, that's easy to answer. I didn't have an involvement with them. That is total propaganda. And this is what happens in our society, total propaganda.
Okay, so it's total, he calls it total propaganda. This is what happens in our society. He totally said he had no involvement with this company. He went on to say that he did do speeches. He did get paid for the speeches. But wait a minute. There's an infomercial out there where he clearly endorses the Mannatech products.
And that's why I was drawn toward Manitech, because it recognized, the influence on health of natural foods.
Glyconutrients. That's what it's all about. Now, what you just heard in that infomercial, is that an endorsement? You better believe it is. It's a professional association. He's lending his professional credibility as a doctor to a company, and he's getting paid for it. And then he goes into a debate and blames it on our society, blames it on gotcha journalism. So he's asked the question, what do you want the debates to be like? This is what he said on Sunday.
Well, we have to ask ourselves, what is the purpose of a debate? And the real purpose is to allow the voters to have an opportunity to see what's behind each of the candidates. What do they actually think about the various policies that are affecting the lives of everyday Americans?
Okay, I totally agree with that. I totally agree with that. And what is behind Ben Carson when it comes to his professional integrity to lend his name and his experience and his title and his education, his entire background to a company that now he's willing to step out in front of the American people to say, well, I just didn't have any association with a company that was sued for $7 million for false advertising, yet he endorsed them. Now, CNBC is now attacking, or should I say, the RNC is now attacking CNBC, saying that, well, the questions were off base. That question is exactly what I want to see in a debate. This is a vetting process that we have to have. And I think there's a racial component here. The last thing the Republican Party needs is for a minority candidate, with all the problems they've had with minorities and how they can't get minorities to support their agenda. The last thing they need is for a minority front-running candidate to go sideways and lie about his professional past. And that's exactly what Ben Carson is doing. He also had this to say about the debates.
Well, I think that we should have moderators who are interested in disseminating the information about the candidates as opposed to...
Well, what is that? Okay, he's asked you a question about your involvement with a company. That's disseminating information about your past and who you are, Dr. Carson. This is a freak show is what it is. Ben Carson has been off the rails since day one. And now that he's been caught in a debate lying, now that he's trying to go sideways on his professional past with a company that is less than reputable, here we are. It's CNBC's fault. Here we are. We got to have debates with people that are going to go ahead and be on our side. In fact, Ted Cruz went so far as to say this about the moderators.
Lay out a radical proposition. How about if we say from now on, if you have never voted in a Republican primary in your life, you don't get to moderate a Republican primary debate.
In other words, if you're going to make our candidates look dishonest because they are, we don't want anything to do with you. That's where the Republican Party is. And the last thing they need is a credibility problem with their front-running candidate, and that's exactly what they've got. So they've got to get a target. The target is CNBC. Look, aren't you and I smart enough to determine whether the question's worth a shit or not? I mean, come on. I mean, it's the answers. This was a pivotal point in all of the debates that we've seen so far of the Republicans. And I'd like to have some questions about Donald Trump and his business past. When you're on that stage and you want to be the commander in chief and you want to lead this country, you've got to expect that everything in your past is going to be in a path of no stone left unturned.